Here's a surprising fact not everyone knows. Austria is a federation, which means it's actually a union of no less than 9 states. And if you're curious about them, you're in luck, cause this series will go through each and every one of them, starting today with Burgenland. Hello and welcome to 7 Facts. Burgenland is the easternmost and least populous state, or Bundesland, of Austria. Less than 300,000 people live in what is the most rural area of the country. While this is Austria we are talking about, there are no mighty mountains here. Burgenland consists of large fields in the north and rolling hills everywhere else. While this is the least developed state of Austria, still, it's Austria. For the most part, life is pretty good here. But enough with the introductions, let's look at the history of Burgenland. In really ancient times, Celts used to roam this area, but that era ended once the Romans arrived. Around the 1st century AD, Burgenland became a part of the Roman Empire, and they were the first in a long list of countries that actually owned this place. After the Romans came the Huns, and the Ostrogoths, and the Lombards, and the Avars, the Slavs, then the Franks, and the Hungarians, and the Habsburgs. Then the Austrian Empire was established, replaced by Austria-Hungary, and finally we arrive at today's Federation of Austria. In all fairness, most of these kingdoms were Germanic and most of the people who actually lived here were also Germanic. Once the Hungarians came and established their kingdom, Burgenland became sort of a borderland between the Magyars and the Germans. From 1043 AD to the 16th century, Burgenland was the western frontier of the Kingdom of Hungary. That ended when the kingdom fell into Ottoman hands. What was left unconquered came under the rule of the Habsburg dynasty, who included Burgenland into the so-called Royal Hungary. So Burgenland sorta has 2 parents, one German and one Hungarian. And that's important to remember because it'll help you better understand how Burgenland became an Austrian state. But more on that in a minute. Eisenstadt is the capital of Burgenland. Eisenstadt means Iron City, a reminder of the ancient iron mines from the area. By the way, I forgot to tell you, Burgenland means the land of castles. Anyway, Eisenstadt. This is a very small capital by European standards. Less than 15,000 people live here. Nevertheless, it's, as one might expect, a gorgeous little town. The Esterházy noble family were the first who transformed Eisenstadt into an architectural jewel, and it was also a cultural center. At one point, even the famous composer Joseph Haydn lived and worked here. But it wasn't a smooth sailing all the way. Eisenstadt was destroyed several times throughout history. The last time was in World War II, and Soviet troops occupied it and remained here until 1955. Not that you can tell today, the city is in pristine condition. Anyway, whether you have some Burgenlandi business to attend to or wish to take a walk in a quaint, beautiful location, Eisenstadt is the city for you. The main feature of Burgenland is Lake Neusiedl, shared between Austria and Hungary. Most of the lake is surrounded by reeds which serve as a habitat for wildlife. Authorities have discussed the damming or draining of Neusiedl several times, but luckily nothing happened. And so, today the lake is part of a national park and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Neusiedl is surrounded by lots of picturesque towns and villages and even Roman villas and temples. And despite being a protected habitat, this place is a magnet for tourists. It's been called the Sea of the Viennese as it's the perfect place for sailing and windsurfing. So, Lake Neusiedl, put it on your bucket list. Now let's return to the history of Burgenland. Once the Ottomans were kicked out, the Kingdom of Hungary was restored, albeit under the Habsburgs. Burgenland remained a part of that kingdom. But while there were significant minorities living here, 3/4 of the people remained ethnic Germans and only 9% were Hungarians. So, after World War I, Burgenland was joined to the newly formed country of Austria. According to the Treaty of Trianon, Burgenland was to be officially annexed to Austria in August 1921. But this led to an uprising. The Croat and Hungarian minorities didn't want to join Austria, so a referendum was held in the area's largest city, Ödenburg, now Sopron, and 8 surrounding villages. They voted to remain in Hungary, and surprisingly, these results were accepted by the major powers. Sopron and the 8 villages were given to Hungary, while the rest of Burgenland was merged with Austria. This was the only serious territorial revision in the years following the Treaty of Trianon. Because Burgenland is a small agricultural state with a small population, it's not the busiest nor the most prosperous area of Central Europe. But these facts also bring some advantages, such as an easier transition to renewable energy sources. Yes, Burgenland is a pioneer in the field of wind power. Just 20 years ago, around 2000, only 3% of all the electricity produced here came from wind turbines. By 2011, that number grew to 50%. And in 2013, Burgenland produced more electricity than it needed, and all of it came from renewable sources. While the low population and low energy consumption certainly helped Burgenland reach these numbers, nevertheless, it still serves as a good example of how we can all make the transition from fossil fuels. When you say Austria, you think of two things: its mountains and its capital. And for good reason. But that means that Burgenland isn't the country's most touristy state. However, that doesn't mean it should be ignored. While there are no ski resorts here, there's still plenty to see and do. First, there are the castles. I mean, it's in the name of the state, so of course there are castles to visit. There are also many thermal spas and lodges, historic towns and villages, and vineyards as far as the eyes can see. Oh, there's also the Neusiedlersee Family Park, the largest amusement park in the whole of Austria. And another reason to come here is shopping. Near Pandorf is one of the largest designer outlets in this part of Europe, with nearly 200 shops and bars. 4 million shopping tourists come to this place every year. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Leave your comments downstairs, and don't forget there's a Patreon page where you can support this channel. I hope to see you next time. Bye.